Japan's recovery from World War II, from devastation to economic miracle. After the defeat in World War II, Japan was in a state of utter devastation. Cities were destroyed, the economy was paralyzed, and the country itself was under the occupation of American troops. But despite all the difficulties, Japan was able not only to recover, but also to become one of the world's leading economies. How did this happen? Let's understand. First steps: occupation and reform, 1945 to 1952. When Japan surrendered in September 1945, the country was in a deep crisis. Destroyed cities, millions dead, destroyed infrastructure and economic disaster. Complicating the situation was the fact that Japan had neither the resources nor the technology to rebuild quickly. Japan was occupied by the United States for 7 years, during which time a series of reforms began that laid the groundwork for future economic growth. General Douglas MacArthur, who led the occupation administration, initiated sweeping changes. Second, reform of the political system and the economy. One of the most important steps was to change the political system. In 1947, a new Japanese constitution was adopted that guaranteed human rights, democracy, and the renunciation of war as an instrument of foreign policy. In Article 9 of the Constitution, Japan renounced the right to wage war. This reform strengthened internal stability and confidence in the government. Critical to the reconstruction, however, were economic reforms. For example, there was land reform, in which some land was redistributed to peasants, which greatly increased agricultural productivity and improved people's living conditions. America also provided significant economic aid to Japan through the MacArthur Plan, which provided loans and supplies of raw materials, allowing Japan to begin rebuilding industry. It is important to note that Japan not only rebuilt its manufacturing capacity, but also adopted new technologies borrowed from the US. 3. Economic miracle, growth of industry and investment, 1950s, 1960s. By the 1950s, Japan was beginning to recover, and its economy was showing the first signs of growth. The Japanese government actively supported the development of key industries, such as automobiles, shipbuilding, chemicals, and electronics. Japanese companies such as Toyota, Mitsubishi, and Sony began to grow aggressively and enter the global market. One factor in this growth was the active support of the United States. During the Cold War, Japan became an important American ally in Asia, which provided a steady flow of investment and technology. 4. Industrialization and infrastructure building. In the 1960s and 1970s, Japan experienced a real industrial boom. On the basis of American technology and Japanese hard work, large corporations were created that became world leaders. The construction of high-speed railroads, the development of ports and logistics, the growth of cities, all this testified to a high level of technological and economic progress. In addition, Japan developed a unique model of the production process known as the Japanese management system. This included an approach such as lean manufacturing, which allowed for high efficiency at low cost. This approach became a model for other countries. 5. Culture and societal change. An equally important factor in the reconstruction was the internal transformation of society. Japanese culture, with its values of hard work, discipline, collectivism, and respect for elders, played a key role in reconstruction. The Japanese embraced labor and reconstruction as part of their national duty and honor. In addition, Japan began to actively participate in international affairs. In 1956, the country was admitted to the United Nations, and in 1964, Japan hosted the Summer Olympics in Tokyo, symbolizing its return to the international stage as a peaceful and prosperous nation. 6. Problems and challenges. Despite the successes, Japan's reconstruction has not been without challenges. environmental problems, social inequality, and high competition in the global marketplace became increasingly prominent in the 1970s and 1980s. However, Japan continued to adapt and improve. 7. Bottom line, the economic miracle of Japan. As a result of the efforts of the government, workers, and entrepreneurs, Japan went from a shattered country to one of the world's largest economies. From the late 1950s to the early 1970s, the Japanese economy showed an annual growth rate of 8 to 10%, which became known as the economic miracle. Japan was able to not only rebuild its industry, but also become a technological leader, and its products, whether they were automobiles, electronics, or consumer goods, conquered world markets. Japan's recovery was not only an example of economic growth, but also a testament to how political reform, strategic planning, and hard work can lead to a stable and prosperous society.